Again, my apologies to all of you if you're just joining now. It was my sense of time and my persistence in my head that this was happening on the hour instead of the half hour. No idea where that came from. So I thought we had lots and lots of time, and I would have been wrong about that for sure. So I am about to get to where hopefully I can see your comments and know who's here.
I've got crickets in the background here. I'm liking this.
Well, and you were worried about trains.
I think they've stopped running, but we might get a train. Definitely a plane.
Trains, planes, Superman, maybe?
Yeah, and crickets.
I can't hear them.
Okay.
I did not have them in my office. Okay, so I am in, and we are going to get the Facebook page open, and we can see Elizabeth Silver is here. Yay, you found us. You may be the only person who has found us, which is a good thing.
Hi, Elizabeth.
We were way late. So that means that you're going to have to talk a lot and ask us a bunch of questions. Oh, good. Jamie's here too. So we have Elizabeth and Jamie. We are really sorry it wasn't you, it was me about being late. So Elizabeth and Jamie, tell us just something real quick about your day that was really awesome and wonderful. And we're going to start talking about things. And as other people join, then you can ask us questions and go from there. Oh, Elizabeth already has a question for us. How do you get ideas for your books? So that's a great one, Melissa. I'm going to let you start that, and then I will answer next.
All right. I actually love that question, and I wish I knew, but sometimes I'm just driving and I'm thinking, or I'm listening to a podcast. Podcasts will do it. Anything that opens my mind to the way relationships or stories of people will get me thinking of, oh, well, how could this affect, if I had this character, how would this real life situation affect this character? What would make it more interesting? And so I get ideas from just about anything. It could be a conversation. I just feel, and I'm always inspired by people, their stories.
Yeah, me too. I get the ideas from everywhere. It used to be like when I was working at the clinic, one of the doctors would go into a room with a patient and they'd be in there for a long time, and I'd look at a coworker and go, do you think they're dead in there? And if they are, what do you think happened? And who killed who? And they would just look at me and go, you're scary sometimes. I know.
I get it. I make up stories of my neighbors all the time. Ones I don't know well. If I meet them, I'm like, oh, I bet. And I'll have a whole story about them. And then I get to know them and I realize I was completely off base. But right. I always feel like I was kind of on. So here comes the train.
What about with yeah, I do that too. It's very fun. As the Viking and I play games actually sometimes. Like we're traveling at the airport or wherever, it'd be like making up stories about all the people that we see, and we don't care that we're really wrong. it's just fun. And I'm curious about lost stones. So I'm going to have you talk about how you came with that idea, and I'm going to pop over to the events page real quick and see if anybody's over there waiting for us. Okay. So you're
so I don't know if you all have read it yet, but it actually, I started with Lucy, and Lucy is the older character, the one that brings the magic into this story.
So she's kind of, you've spoken of her as a witch off and on before.
She's
not a witch. I didn't think.
Yeah. I wouldn't say she's a witch, but she is a very special person. And for me, in this story is about a lot of very real things. Kids who are in foster care and don't have the kind of families that a lot of us are able to grow up with, and people who lose people that they love, children or family members. And sometimes reality, you just can't change it. And this story, to me, I wanted something magical to come into it. And that was okay for me. And Lucy is that magic. But when I started with her character, she actually was somebody very different, not at all magical, but she evolved over time. And where it's set, Pine Lake, I had explored Pine Lake with other stories. So it was a very familiar setting to me. And Lucy was a character I'd gotten to know in other ways.
Oh, so had you written Lucy into other books previously?
I have another book prior to this that was my first book, actually,
Uh-huh.
and it's set in Pine Lake. And Lucy is in it, but it's actually Evie is another character,
Uh-huh.
and she's more prominent in that first book with
Oh,
with with Lucy as well.
oh, I love that. I had no idea about that. So that's very fun. I love when authors do that. So did you create this place or is it a real live location? Uh-oh.
Based on where I live, Evergreen. Oh, are we there?
You kind of froze for a minute, but you're back.
Okay. It's based on where a town where I live near and have lived for about 20 years, but roughly people who read it know, oh, this is Main Street, there's the dam, there's the lake, but it's really that town maybe 40 years ago, far more rustic than it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of my Carrie Ann King books are set here in Colville, in the town that I live in, and it's real, which is a little bit of a trick because you have to get all the details right, or at least right enough. I have played with creating fictional towns, and it's very fun. I did a lot more of that with my Carrie Schaefer books, with my fantasy and my paranormal. That was really fun. I created a town called Shadow Valley and one called Krebston. And then I wrote my novella trilogies. Actually, people who grew up with me knew right away who read it. They're like, oh, it's Williams Lake, even though Williams Lake is back in Canada and I set it in Washington. So that kind of thing is really fun, I think. We have some comments. So I'm going to zip over here and see. Are our characters based on people we know at all? And oh, hang on a second. Lucy's here. I want to say hi, Lucy. I'm glad you're here. That's really awesome. Okay, go ahead.
I love that question. And don't you find, Kerry, that people we know, they're always, my parents especially, if I write a parent, they're like, why are your parents all so horrible to their to their children? What have we done to you?
Right?
Personally, I would say I take characteristics. I've not written it. So for example, Star in Pine Lake, in the Stones book, the look of her was from a RMFW conference, Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers Conference. There was a young teenager who came. This was 4 or 5 years ago. And she came to the conference and she had this cool dress on that was straight out of the 70s, this funky, great hairstyle, glasses. She just was, and I thought, I want a character to look like her one day. And that was well before I had Stones even envisioned. So, but she stayed with me. And so that is, yeah, so that was the appearance, at least, was someone I had seen.
So you took the appearance of somebody you'd seen, but not the actual personality or real.
Yeah, not in that instance. But like I said, I would say I take characteristics, strong characteristics of people I might know, but it's all melded together. How about you?
For the most part, I don't. I did when I was a younger author. I tried to do that in one of my fantasy books, and the characters kept coming out flat because I was writing, I don't know, it didn't work for me. And so I cut them, and then I felt really bad. It was one of those really serious guilt things because I cut this character right out of the book, and then the actual character died. And I had this like total guilt thing, like it happened because I cut them, right?
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, I know. Not really. I'm sure not. I cross my heart. I hope not. That would just be really terrible. I did put somebody in my book, I Wish You Happy. She was a co-worker of mine when I worked at the clinic, and she's just lovely. She talks all the time. She knows this, so I can say that. She knows who she is. She asked to be put in a book, and she's just this wonderful, bubbly, talkative person, and I just adore her. Heart of gold. She loves people so much. So I wrote her into a book, and she is the nurse friend of my main character in I Wish You Happy. And
Oh,
yeah, she loved that I did that. So that was fun. She was a secondary character, but for the most part, no, I don't anymore. It's just bits and pieces of people that I base my characters on, and then they just take on lives of their own. Do you find that? Do your characters kind of take over and run away with the story?
oh, absolutely. That's what I love about writing, actually. That's what I love about creating characters, because before you know it, you've molded this character and all of a sudden they're doing things and you either agree with it or you don't, but you have to have that discussion with your characters. And then you have to either put them on their way or let them take you wherever they're going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
which do you tend to do? Do you tend to let them take you where they want to go, or do you?
in the world of writing, I am definitely a pantser, so I think that you let them that kind of I let the story go, which means I have to come back and put everyone in line and revisions and edits
Right. Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
You know, when they do something that doesn't make any sense and doesn't at all enhance the story, and I always have those moments where my editor, my agent's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, yeah, that happens too. I'm always so grateful though when my characters come alive like that and start taking over, because that's how I know the book's going to be okay. It's like that's when it becomes real, when they're real enough to change my plot, because I look at them and I go, well, yeah, I can see you wouldn't do this thing, and I can't make you do that unless I change stuff up or whatever. I love when that happens, because usually it means things are about to get a whole lot better in the book. So yeah, I'm a pantser too. That's interesting, because we both have this little magical realism touch too that I want
Yeah.
to talk about before I go back to comments over here. So, um, yeah, so the magical realism in your book, do you want to just talk a little bit about, I know we don't want to give plot away because people haven't necessarily read yet or whatever, but do you want to address that, how you brought it into play in your
Yeah,
story?
I think with this one, I wanted these characters to have, I wanted these characters to have that. It was almost like a gift to say, as hard as life can be and as difficult, sometimes there is something that pulls us all together. There's something that connects us. And that's actually what I absolutely love to explore in stories with characters. How can these seemingly unrelated characters come together to either support one another or make a difference in each other's lives? Because that's how I like to look at life, that our actions can impact others in ways that we may never know, and sometimes in ways you will find out. And so that's kind of where, for me in this story, bringing the magic in seemed right. It just was the what these characters were asking for in this story, and I
Right.
love it. I mean, I have always loved that part of this story.
Yeah, yeah, I love that too. I'm very fond of a little bit of magic. As my Carrie Schaefer self, I write a lot of magic, and I love doing that. It's great fun. I've had to dial that back a lot doing women's fiction books, so it was with great delight in this one that I realized that the cello was demanding things. So my cello just wanted to have a voice and of its own, and I really thought that my agent and my editor were going to tell me I couldn't do that. So when I approached it to my agent, it was with great fear and trembling, and I told her, so the cello kind of has a soul, and she's like, oh, I love that, and I was like, oh yeah, but then I didn't think my editor would go for it, and she did. So I was just so pleased by all of that. That made me really happy, because it was very fun to.
I love that, and I love that you put something in a musical instrument, because I think music is one of those things that can connect people. And everyone. I mean, I always listen to music when I write, and I love to hear whether it's the words or the beat. And I think musical instruments are very special. So I think that's such a neat part of your book.
Yeah, oh, I love that. I always felt that cellos were magical. Also, there's kind of precedent for this. Like if you look at the makers of the fine wood instruments like violins and cellos, there's all this
Mm-hmm.
mythology around that has been around for centuries. That they sold their souls to the devil for this special power to be able to make the Stradivarius or whatever. Paganini was supposedly gifted with his special playing ability by some supernatural entity. It's all kind of in there, so it was fun to play around in that. I was going to ask you, because you talked about that. What kind of music do you write to? What do you like to listen to when you're writing?
When I'm writing, it has to be music. It can have words in it, but I cannot know those words. It can't be anything that I hear on a regular basis. So no pop culture music, but it can be, I like dark. I like sometimes like pretty lights, a little bit of techno, something with a beat, if
Yeah.
it's no words. And I could just get lost then in my thoughts. But I do like to have some sort of music in my head. When I'm revising and editing, that's a little different. When I have more freedom because I know the story now and I know where we need to go, then I can listen to just about anything. Yeah, some days it's classical and some days it's no death metal. I don't do that.
No. Yeah, that's one of the ones I don't either. I very, very eclectic tastes there, though. For me, as far as music, if you listen to my playlist, I've got everything from. I do have something that's a little bit metal, actually. Yeah, I can't right at the moment. I can't remember what it's called. It was so funny. My kids put it on thinking I was going to hate it, like to aggravate me when they were teenagers, and they were really shocked because I went, "Oh, I really like this." I was surprised. So I have everything from the three tenors to Enya to that kind of thing going on. But when I'm writing, I really a lot of the times I just like it quiet. If I do have music on, it needs to be, it's usually something that does have words, but it's something that I know so well I don't have to think about it and I can just let it go by me. I'm really fond of Mark Knopfler. Mark Knopfler is one of my favorite musicians, so that makes great background music for me. And Enya, the aforementioned, I like her for when I'm writing, and Nora Jones is one of my favorite background writing people too. Let's see, we've got some new people here. See what's going on up here. Elizabeth's laughing about the parents. I know, I fell into trouble with the thing with parents too. I was like, every time I write a book, I make these mother-daughter relationships that are so complex and difficult. I was worried that my mother would feel bad, but she never seemed to, so I think we were okay on that. Let's see. Lucy says, I was asked what I wanted for my birthday a few years ago, and I said that I wished to be murdered in a book.
I love that.
Lucy, we need to talk.
Is this a therapy session? We should maybe discuss this in depth.
Actually, what I was thinking, I'm in my writer self right now, who is totally dark and evil. I'm like, well, if you want to be murdered in a book, then we need to have a conversation, because I'm thinking about writing another Dead Before Dying Shadow Valley series going on here in a little bit, and somebody will have to die for sure. So.
Might be Lucy.
We could consider that. Elizabeth loves how we develop and branch out with our characters. Thank you, Elizabeth. We like that too. Susie's here. Yay. Hi, Susie. Thank you for coming again.
Susie.
Susie.
Hi, Susie.
Awesome. Susie approved. Susie was at my live thing last night, so it's awesome that you're here. Jamie would like to know if we have a ritual for the night before release night or on release night. You mean like really drinking to the point of... No, not that. No, not me. Honestly, no. Melissa, do you have a ritual for release night or release day or any of that?
Well, since this is my debut, I don't know if I can call it a ritual yet. And the problem is with writing and getting published is there's all these little successes along the way, and everyone says you should celebrate. So I feel like I've celebrated all the little milestones. So when we got to this part, I was just happy to be here. Happy to have been published, and thankful and grateful, because it's been a really neat experience to share what was in my head with people.
Right, and have it out in the world and have people actually reading it. So I'd forgotten briefly that this was your debut. So it's really a weird thing. Let's talk about the first reads a little bit with that too, because the first reads experience as far as publishing a book is a weird animal. This is like, I don't know, the platypus of the publishing world.
Platypus.
It's wonderful and awesome, but it's not like anything else that you ever do. So with the first reads, it's like you're launching your book twice over 2 months, and it's hard to explain. It's like when it's first reads, it's almost kind of surreal. It's like you have your books out there, and people who are on first reads know about it, but nobody else really does. And it might be like, I know you were sitting up at number 5 in the Kindle charts. Did you get stop me if it went higher than that, but that was where I was watching you.
Yeah, I stopped watching. I don't know where I went.
Yeah, very
emails.
wise
Yeah,
to stop watching. It's addictive to keep looking at there.
and it fluctuates so much that you can be real happy, and then you're like, oh no, that's bad, and it's hard to really judge, well, how are you doing? And it kind of skews that a little bit, I think. But again, being my first one, right. I don't know. You can speak more to that. But I just kind of stopped. And,
that was very wise of you. And then you get a whole nother, oh my God, it's like releasing, but it's been out for a month, right? So it's just, it's a little bizarre, but awesome.
Well, I would love to hear how you compare that to, because you've had 2 first reads, right?
Yeah, this is my second, which is totally amazing. I'm still totally blown away by that, and so incredibly grateful. That does not happen very often. Then it was even weirder, really, to tell you the truth, because this book and how it's done is completely different than what the last one did. So I kind of had expectations, oh, it'll be like last time, but it wasn't. And so everything, you have to manage that. You know, I've had, what I've been focusing on is a lot of awesome reader love coming to me. That is like the best thing in the world. So I've had, people messaging me or commenting on my posts or whatever, how much they love the book. That just keeps me going. Even on the days where, you look and you think, well, maybe the book's not doing as well as my publisher thinks it should be doing. That's always the scary thought that some of us fall into.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I that's the question I have in my head a lot, because
do you?
I don't know.
How do you know, right? We all have that. And I was just to say, no, of course, I never experienced that. I'm like really wise and beyond. No, that's not true. The thought pops into my head. Is my publisher going to be disappointed? And the answer to that, I'm pretty sure, is no. So it's all good. It's very fun. So let's see, we have more things here. Ritual before the night before release. My rituals really involve just gratitude mostly. I really believe that a lot of good things come from that, and just that it's a good practice generally. Life is better when you're grateful for the things that you have. And I find that you tend to get more good things the more grateful you are for the things that you have. So I do kind of focus on that. Do you kind of buy into that too, Melissa?
Absolutely. And actually, one of the things I've been incredibly grateful for that I wasn't necessarily prepared was the readers who do reach out to tell me how much they enjoyed the book. That's really touching. And I think, gosh, do I do that enough for people when I appreciate something? Right. Because it means a lot to hear that. It's humbling, but it means a lot. So that has been, I'm very grateful for that. Right. And they've been, I haven't, I'm also prepared for people who maybe would reach out for not a nice reason, and that's okay too. They have something to say, I guess, but I haven't had that.
There's been so little of that. Readers in general, we love you guys. You're like awesome people. Let's see. Lucy says, Alan Leverone gave his school teacher character in Grimoire my name. So cool. Still smile when I think of it. Lucy, Melissa does have a character named Lucy.
I know.
In her book.
Do you have a little bit of magic in you, or red hair by chance? Maybe I did write about you.
Maybe you just channeled Lucy into your book. No, right?
I love that name, by the way.
Diane, don't worry about being late. We were late too. I had a totally blonde moment. I was thinking we were starting half an hour later than we really were, so kind of scrambled there a little bit to get ready. Last time I did one of these author-to-author chats, I was ready way early, and I was worried that the tech wouldn't work, so I was in here 10 minutes early pretending that I wasn't here just to make sure everything was working. And this time I was like, I'm going to be cool. Way too far the other way. Let's see. Lucy asks if we listen to anything when we read. Me?
Like music?
No. If I can help it, no. I don't like to listen to anything when I'm reading. What about you, Melissa?
Unless I'm listening to an audiobook. Other than that, no, I don't.
Yeah.
I do like silence or crickets.
Crickets are
when I'm reading.
Yeah. At my house we have frogs too. We have crickets and lots of little tree frogs, so it gets really pretty loud at night. It's really awesome. I love it. Susie would like to know, Melissa, what was the publishing process like for you? And then she added like queries, etc.
That was a long process. I mean, this was my second book that got picked up. So my first book I queried while I was querying my first book is when I wrote Secrets of the Lost Stones. And that helped because it was a good process. I had a nice response. People were interested. I just couldn't get anyone to pick me up, any agents. And so then I started to query the Secrets of Lost Stones, probably a little bit sooner than it was ready to go out, but I was still revising and rewriting. And I kind of got to a point where, I followed all the rules, and I'm not a rule breaker, but I finally got to the point where I thought, I'm just going to go to Publishers Marketplace and look up the top 10 agents out there, and darn it, that's who I'm going to query. So I did. And that's when I found my agent.
That's when it worked for you. Hey, that's it's just creative interpretation of rules, I feel.
Right.
Is helpful.
A lot of this business, I feel like, is timing and persistence. So persistence and timing. And if you keep at it, you'll get that timing. That was timing for me.
Right. Well, and what you're calling timing, I kind of call luck.
Yes. It's the same, right?
It's like, but the luck only happens because you work hard and are persistent, right? It's like, otherwise you wouldn't have anything to be lucky with. So there's all of that, staying with it and writing the book and continuing to show up, even maybe if things aren't working out, and only then can luck's not a great word, actually. Synchronicity is one of my favorite words.
I like that. Yes. I like that.
It's a very cool word. And that is kind of what you were saying with timing, when it's the right time, it happens.
But I do feel like that answer totally glossed over like how challenging that process is to get published, and how much patience we have to have, and how much humility you have to have, because you have to be willing to look at your work and say, is this the best it can be? And then hear that it may be not, and figure out how then you will take that. And it's a long process, and it does take all of us writers in all stages. I feel for all of us because I know what it's like. And, but I'm also, proud to be part of so many great writers too, especially with Lake Union, meeting you, Susie. Yeah, all the other
awesome. Lake Union is fantastic. So Melissa, how long have you been writing? How long have you been working towards this goal?
Well, I wrote my first novel when I was 5.
Wow.
No, I'm just kidding. I couldn't spell then. No, I started writing when I turned 40. My kids were back in school. It was my time to go back to work full time. I had stayed at home with them, and I have always loved writing. I have always loved telling stories. It's in me. And that's what I wanted to pursue, but I knew how hard it was. And I didn't want to not be a part of I didn't want to be not contributing. So I've been very driven to see that I got somewhere with it. And now it's just a book by book process, right? You got to keep going, and you got to keep showing up and coming up with great stories.
Right. As I like to put it, actually, is you get to keep doing it. You get to keep showing up. I'm really big on loving what you write, or what's the point. That's my philosophy. I know there are some writers who write just for the money, and I feel like there would be easier ways possibly to make money, but I love
yes, there are.
Although, weirdly enough, they're not easier for me. right? So I have a nursing license, I have a counseling license, I'm fully equipped and capable and have experience working in both of those fields. It's much harder for me to show up and do that work than it is for me to show up and write, because writing is something that I really feel called to do, I guess, or born to do, or it's a drive. It's a thing I need to do. So even when I was working, I was still writing and making time for it. Because, well, I need to. And so writing what you love really helps to ease all of that publishing stuff and coming back and focusing on that over and over and over again. So whenever I get hooked into how my numbers are doing, how my books are doing, how my sales are doing, those kinds of things, I come back to, oh God, I love this story and I love this character, and that just makes it all easier. Does it work that way for you too? Or?
Oh, totally. You know, and what you said about, like, if you love something, it may not mean it's because it's easy. Like, you know, we do it because we want to tell stories and we want to impact somebody. I mean, I love when I find a book that I can't put down. I love when I find a story that I keep thinking about.
Right.
And so, you know, just being able to do that and try to get better at it with each book. And it's a gift that I'm able to do this right now. I feel lucky, but it doesn't mean, you know, doing what we love is always easy, but that's okay, because we love the process.
Great. And I kind of liken that to a romance. I've talked about this or written about this before. It's like a relationship. You know, you fall in love with somebody. Really, writing a book is a lot like that. You have that whole enchantment phase where you fall in love, and it's just like, oh my God, this is so wonderful. This is like the best, most exciting person I've ever met. And then you begin to date and it's still pretty wonderful, but you begin to run into the challenges, and then you get married, and 10 years down the road, it's like, oh my God, what was I thinking momentarily? Only for, you know, but you know what I mean. And then you have to work at it and you have to figure it out. And how am I going to solve these problems, and how am I going to make it all come right in the end? So it's kind of like that with writing. You do it because you love it, and the more love there is, the easier it is, but it's not always easy. Funny about that. So this analogy really was live for me the other day, because I came across a new idea. I wasn't even meaning to start writing, and I did. So I'm currently launching Everything You Are, and I'm in developmental edits on A Borrowed Life, and I've started writing a whole new book.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was so funny, because my Viking, he's a part of my process. He reads all my stuff. He really likes to know what I'm doing. So he's like, well, he kept asking me, tell me about it. Tell me about the new idea. And I'd be like, no, I can't talk about it right now. And he'd get like, he was starting to get a little edgy about that. And I was like, well, look, it's like when you first meet somebody and you think maybe you're falling in love, but you're really not sure, and you don't want to tell anybody yet because it's going to ruin it. Right?
Yes.
Right.
I love this analogy.
So it's kind of like that for me when I have a new idea, until I get it to the point where I can actually talk about it. And I really literally had to write like about the first 40 pages before I finally went home and said, okay, here's what I'm writing.
There's nothing worse than telling someone an idea that is a little baby idea, and you can see the initial excitement, and then you can see where you haven't connected all the dots yet, and you kind of lose them as the audience. And there's nothing worse than that. So you just got to wait till it's at least I don't know, like a toddler that you can understand.
Exactly. Or you tell people and they're like, oh, that's just, I don't get that. That's a bad idea. Or this is one the Viking is sometimes guilty of. He'll jump on the train because he wants to be part of the process. So he'll be like, oh, and then you could make her, and you could make him do this, and I'm just like, no, go away, get out of my head. So yeah, those things happen. Let's see, we have, oh, Holly made it. Hi, Holly. You made it. We were late too. Everybody was late. So it's cool. You're here. Do you have any questions for Melissa, Holly, since you're here? And I know Ruth and Diane, I see you guys lurking. So if you have any questions for us, go ahead and ask them.
Where are they lurking?
Where are they lurking? I can tell you have a brain that's a little bit like mine. The last Shadow Valley book that I wrote, World Tree Girl, the Viking was reading that one, and he got to this spot in the middle. It's, kind of, there are ghosts. There's some kind of, it's not horror, but it's paranormal thriller. He's got the book. He looks at me, he looks at the book, he looks at me, and he goes, "You're scaring me right now."
That's awesome.
I was like, yes, that's very cool. Welcome to my evil little brain. We look so nice, right?
I know. It's so fun to know what goes on in here and to look fairly normal and know that not what I'm thinking.
Not so
But
much.
also fun to scare a Viking. That has to be.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because he's the big blustery tough guy, and so and he calls me the Canadian.
A Canadian.
which from him just means, you're kind of. Anyway, I'm not even going to get into it. He loves me very much. He's very supportive, but it's kind of like an endearing. Yeah, I'm not going to go any further on that. I'm going to change the subject. What do we got going on? Holly says, let's see, Melissa's a new author to me, so tell me about her books and genre and inspiration. Oh, well, Holly, do you want to take that? Do you want to just talk a little bit about, because we haven't really too much, so talk about the title of your book and what genre it is, and kind of a little bit about plot, maybe, because we did not get into that at all.
It's called The Secrets of Lost Stones, and women's fiction with magical realism elements, because it really focuses on kind of lost people. And here's something that I have yet to get really good at, is when somebody says, "What's your book about?"
Right.
I freeze.
Well, it's about, there was this thing, and then there's this person, and then this thing happened. Right?
I much prefer to talk about big, but however, I did participate in this blogger's interviews, and I had to write something really short. So I'm going to read it because it's really good.
All right, that works.
All right, here we go. The Secrets of Lost Stones. Isn't this so sad that I have to do this?
I totally get it.
Thank you. It's a book about loss, love, grief, and survival, and the redemption that comes with facing the past and letting it go. It's about Jess, a mother who endured the loss of her young son, and Star, a lonely teenage girl who believes her best option is to sleep under a city bench, and Lucy, a woman with a gift to tie them all together.
Yeah, there.
Kapow!
Oh, you got it.
Yeah. Now I just have to practice on not reading it. But isn't that ridiculous that I can't? But
well, it's hard. It's so hard to take, because for you, it's this whole big living complex organism, and then to just bring it down to just a few sentences of what is it about. I always struggle with that too. People ask that, on podcasts or interviews, and I'm just like, go all tongue tied. I know, like everything you are, I want to say, well, it's about a cello. No, it's not about a cello.
Yeah. But what I would say is, what I like to write, it's about relationships and people. And while there is that kind of otherworldly element to it, it's not too heavy, but it's definitely part of it. But to me, it's really about people healing and given that chance to heal and given that chance to move on. And
right.
Those are the themes I like to play with. And I'll play with them. I'm going to continue to play with those in various ways, because that's life, right? I mean, exactly. It's about loss and grieving and moving on, and sometimes having to look back before you can move on. So generally speaking, those are the themes that I will continue to play with. Absolutely. In lots of fun ways.
And I love those themes too. I tend to play with them. I think about your books. Have you read The Keeper of Lost Things?
No, it's on my list, actually.
Read it.
Okay.
If you guys haven't read it, I love this book. It's absolutely just beautiful and a little bit magical. So The Keeper of Lost Things is about somebody who, finds lost items and keeps them with little notes, and then tries to find their owner. And there's these little stories about all the things that he's found, about where they came from. And I kind of think of Lucy in your book a little bit at the center of everything as the keeper of lost people. So in the same way that the Keeper of Lost Things brings these items together, she brings these people together where they can be healed and complete their stories. And so that's my description of your book.
I love that. I'm going to call on you next time I get asked that question.
We always need to call on someone else whenever we get asked, I think. Let's let's see. Holly says, I'm a lost people. Oh, Holly, you're beautiful. Let's see. Elizabeth says, thanks, got to go. Thank you for being here. You were our first person here, Elizabeth.
Bye. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Let's see. Jill is here. She says, you're a new author to me. Jill, I think you're talking to Melissa, but maybe to both of us. Anyway, you're laughing now, which is cool. Oh, Alicia's here too. Hi, Alicia. Think of some questions for us. We're moving on. So yeah, I was gonna ask you something now. It's gone like, what's the next book? What are you working on right now?
My next book is, it's titled Forgotten Now. I don't know if that will, make it through.
Right.
But yeah, it's set in a small town in Alaska, actually.
Oh, wow.
And it's about a woman who wants to remember, and a little girl who wants to be remembered. Oh. And yeah, it has a bear in this one. There's a bear that I'm still playing around with. Yeah. Yep. It's a remote little town. So this one's been very challenging because of the main character, and bringing them all together. But I'm part of the reason I was on this trip and on my little writer's retreat was to make the finishing touches before I send it off. And I'm getting very excited about this story.
Awesome. Yay. Very
How about you? Well, you've got your new one you're working on.
I have a new one I'm working on, and I'm currently in developmental edits on A Borrowed Life, which goes live next August. So I'm in the middle of really tearing apart my work and changing stuff up. There was a comment in my my developmental editor's notes said something about, I think the biggest problem is pacing, and your solution could be really simple or very difficult. And I emailed back, I'm not choosing really simple. I never do. It's like, it's not my vocabulary. So
well, and not if the very difficult path is the right one. If you're like, yeah, that's the right path. Darn it.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. So let's see. Alicia would like to know who or what inspired us to write. And Holly, yeah, the Stone book is her first published book, but you have another book out, or not out, but that you've written, right? So,
yeah, I wrote one before that prior. I just didn't, that one is not what got me picked up. It was the Stones book.
Okay. Alicia
that was my second.
Know who or what inspired you to write?
Oh, that's such a good question. I don't know if if it's one person. I guess when you love stories, I love a well-told tale. I so appreciate the complexity of a well-told story, and the ones that really move you and the ones that grip you. That has always been incredibly important to my downtime. Just and kind of how I look at life too. I like to look. We talked about this earlier, but I like to look at what plays a role in our relationships and what fantastical elements could be out there. I mean, I like to play around with that stuff. So I wish I could say one person, but I can say that to keep writing, that I can attribute to my parents and my husband, who, when things are tough and you're crying in a corner in a fetal position, they lift you up, right? And so to keep writing, that has been all on the people who support and love me.
That's awesome. I love that. I get that from my Viking too. One time I had a deadline. He actually booked me into a motel, drove me down there, checked me in, took the vehicle and said, I'll be back to take you out for dinner, which he did. It was awesome. It was exactly what I needed. Yeah.
That's lovely.
Yes,
I want a Viking.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome. So we had said that we were going to give away a copy of something tonight. Do you have a book with you that you can show them, or did you leave them downstairs in that basement where the internet?
I left them downstairs in the
Okay, well,
yep.
See, I'm going to show you mine. You
can hold up a picture.
And
I had a picture.
Oh, if you got a picture, that works.
Yeah, on my phone. Oh, we'll do that.
Yeah, there you go. So, Suzanne wants a photo of the Viking. Susie, we will think about Viking photos. He's kind of like, did you see the one I posted about Bigfoot? he's kind of like that. He's like, Bigfoot in photos. So
Ooh, can you see that?
kind of. It's such a pretty cover. There, that's better.
It is.
A little bit right
It
there.
is a pretty cover.
Beautiful cover.
So that's what it will look like.
So
not my phone.
What we're going to do is, if you're here, we're going to just kind of randomly choose two people, and then you can decide whether you would like to have a copy of the audiobook or the paperback. For mine, what about you, Melissa? Do you want
same thing? Yes.
So either the audio or the paperback, and I'm just gonna kind of randomly do a thing here, and we're gonna go with, let's see, Holly, you are the winner of Melissa's Secrets of the Lost Stones. So
ooh, Holly!
You can message me your mailing address and I will get that to Melissa. And random. Jamie, if you're still here, Jamie Anderson, you are the winner of one of the Everything You Are books. So
woo, Jamie!
Just message me, Susie. I'm excluding you. Yes, my love. I know you have.
Not fair.
So this is really cool. You guys were awesome. Thank you so much for being here. If you have friends who wanted to be here but couldn't, we're going to have this up live so they can rewatch it later. And I think that's it, unless anybody has any last questions for us. I think not. Thank you so much, Melissa, for being here. You were awesome. This was
Thank
fun.
you for inviting me, Kerry. What a fun. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too. So go off now and do your other little live author chat thing. Not little, probably really awesome and exciting.
Well, let's hope not too exciting.
Yeah, no. there's the good level of excitement, and then there's the places where you don't want to go, right?
Yes, and thank you, everyone. This was really fun.
All right. Okay. Good night, everybody. Take care. Bye, Melissa.
Bye.